And joining us now in the studio is nuclear weapons expert Dr. Emily Landau. Dr. Landau, how dangerous is the situation now with Iran threatening to withdraw from parts of the nuclear deal and perhaps resume enrichment?
Well, if it actually resumes enrichment, or if it carries out its threat in 60 days to actually leave the JCPOA, obviously it's a serious situation. And what we've heard so far is actually a positive message coming from the Europeans that this will not be taken lightly,
and they're likely to put technological development. For those of us who don't know how the centrifuges spin, enriching uranium, how many pieces of the puzzle does that help Iran connect? How much closer does it put Iran towards possibly breaking out to a nuclear weapon?
Well, the main hurdle time-wise right now is getting enough high-enriched uranium. In other words, Iran probably already knows or is close to knowing how to make a nuclear warhead. It's also working almost unhindered on ballistic missile capabilities, which is the delivery mechanism for nuclear weapons. So basically, what they need is the fissile material for the explosion. And
which is what they're threatening to start developing uranium, in 60 days.
Well, they said that they might up it to 20%, which is not yet what is needed. You need over 90%. But I think what we're hearing is more a message of desperation from the Iranians. They're really feeling the pressure of the maximum pressure campaign of the Trump administration. All the people that thought, the United States couldn't put real pressure on Iran on its own without other international actors playing along. We see that they actually have put a lot of pressure on Iran. And Iran is lashing out. It doesn't have too many tools, but we have to remember that these kind of threats have been coming from Iran periodically for the past, since the JCPOA was released.
The deadline will pass in 60 days, and they're going to have to decide whether, whether they want to lose face, save face, and live up on their threat.
It's hard to predict, but it would surprise me if they actually leave the JCPOA. I think it's an attempt to pressure the other side. It's an attempt to drive a wedge between the United States and Europe. And as I said, we see a positive message coming from Europe that they're not going to let that wedge be driven.
President Trump has said, I want the Iranians to call me. He says he wants to negotiate a new deal. And the key terms here, he says, all I want is that they not develop nuclear weapons. Is that not exactly what the JCPOA did in the first place?
Not really. If the JCPOA had been a good deal, that's what it was meant to do. Unfortunately, the JCPOA...
It wouldn't have stopped Iran in perpetuity, but what was the problem with it in a time-limited sense to stop Iran?
Well, what's the point of delaying something that you're actually enabling Iran to reach even more easily down the road? In other words, the JCPOA, one of its major flaws is that it legitimizes Iran's enrichment program. It legitimized it. Therefore, Iran, after the JCPOA expires, they will be able to build up a huge enrichment capability, and then enriching quickly to 90% will be easier than it was before the JCPOA. This whole idea of delaying the inevitable or buying time only makes sense if you can use that time to get better measures in place vis-a-vis Iran.
Some of the Europeans assumed they would draw Iran into the warm embrace of the international community.
The Obama administration and the Europeans were working on this false hope that after the JCPOA, Iran would see the benefits of cooperation and they would be able to continue discussing ballistic missiles, regional activities. All of that proved to be without any basis. But so buying time for what?
Correct me if I'm wrong, because while the JCPOA lasted, we knew that for at least 10 years, Iran would not have sufficient fissile material to build a nuclear weapon. Now they're threatening that in 60 days they're going to take a step forward. So it would seem, through this crisis provoked by the United States, Iran is going to be closer to a nuclear weapon.
Remember, all the JCPOA did was to delay it a year. In other words, the breakout time was pushed from several months to a year. A year is very little time to make decisions, to come to agreement among the international actors. And therefore, this whole idea that the JCPOA actually was stopping Iran is not clear that that was the situation. If Iran had decided to break out at some point in that 10-year period, it probably could not have been stopped as well. So there's a lot of false hope that was put into the JCPOA working to really stop Iran. First of all, the delay is problematic, as I laid out, and even that delay was not ensured by this deal that is seriously, seriously flawed.
Okay, Dr. Emily Landau, thank you very much for coming and shedding light on that issue.